What I like about dancing is that it like takes my mind off of stuff, and I like to perform. Like I like to go to competitions and hang out with all my friends. That's really why I like dance, to like perform it. And it like gets all like my anxiety out. Like I'll just like start doing like random dancing around the house just because I like it.
Our family's experience with anxiety is basically like an unwanted visitor came to our home. It has been a really long road. At first, I didn't know she had anxiety. I just thought maybe she was a needy baby. She just didn't want to be separated from me. But as she got older and we started entering school, things became a little more apparent that she was a little bit different than some of the other kids.
When I'm in a new place or go to places that are really crowded, I start to like fidget with my hands, and like my tongue it'll like go in my cheek, and like I'll like bite my fingernails, and just, like my eyes will get a little watery. And if I don't have my water, then I start to like freak out a lot.
Our older child has anxiety, Braden. In addition, we both have it on both sides of our family. I've personally experienced anxiety in my life after I had him. And it's definitely hereditary on both sides.
What brings me anxiety is like sports games and like the playoffs, like in high pressure situations, or mascots, or like social situations.
I would define anxiety as a fear in a situation where you have a lack of control, and that lack of control really bringing your fear to a level that's not manageable.
Yeah, and I would describe anxiety as just complete overwhelmingness, just a heavy weight that is on your shoulders and you can't seem to get out from under it.
I think I noticed that I had anxiety quite recently, so that means that in my 20s is when I realized it. It's not something I talk about or that I like normally surrounded by these conversations, and so when I think I found out, I don't know, I've been going to therapy the past like 2 years or so, and so I would say like somewhere around that time that I was like working with my therapist, that's when I realized it. And I began to realize how much of it also stems from home, and how much anxiety my mom has and my dad had.
So when I was younger, like the social aspect of everything, I didn't realize that what I was feeling was different than anybody else's. It was, okay, this is what's happening right now. I'm feeling stressed out, because that's what you thought it was, just stress, not something that's going on chemically inside your brain telling you that, oh gosh, fight or flight right now.
I would say that our experience with anxiety with the Martinez family has been with, starting with our daughter, Kelly. She's 10. Situations that bring anxiety to her, I would say, is, for example, school. If she's gonna have a test, if we're doing something out of the ordinary. I was born and raised in Guatemala. He, comes from Puerto Rico. And so when we were growing up, anxiety was not even a word. And we know that it existed, but we didn't talk about it.
Anxiety definitely disrupts a child's daily functioning and can take them away from activities that they really enjoy. I think something that's really important to keep in mind is that there's a lot of variation in what is thought of as an anxious behavior. Different cultures have different names for anxiety, and how someone might describe anxiety or what they think of as an anxious behavior, or even their perspective on what causes anxiety can very much be shaped by their background and culture.
So we all experience worry and fear. It can be a normal part of life, and it can actually be helpful. It can motivate us, it can keep us safe and keep us out of danger. Anxiety becomes problematic when it takes over, when it's out of proportion to the event, or when it just overwhelms and it causes you to make decisions or gets you stuck in ways that keep you from being able to function or do the things that you need to do.
Anxiety can vary in intensity and can range from mild to severe. So mild symptoms might be a child who refuses to participate in class or raise their hand, or an adolescent who avoids going to a large social gathering, such as a birthday party or a school dance. And severe anxiety may be a child who resists going to school altogether, who has like a really large emotional outburst when they're faced with a difficult task.
I think Braden copes with his anxiety well now. It's been a journey. So in the younger years, we didn't really know what we were dealing with. So it took some time to figure out, first identify it. Because in the younger years, there was the running away, there was the hiding, there was, taking entire bookshelves of books and just throwing them all to the ground, trying to figure out what was going on internally. And as he got older and was able to talk about his feelings a little more, that made it easier for us to identify how to help him.
With Kelly, one of the things that I immediately see is, she starts biting on the nails, like kind of wondering and asking lots of questions.
She's always scared of the unknown. Mm-hmm. So she wants to know ahead. And knowing ahead calms her down, but at the same time puts her more pressure to us because she gives us one more question after one more question after one more question of how everything is going to lay out.
And it's funny because the two of us like to do things spontaneously, right? Not such a rigid schedule. And when you have children with anxiety, you can't really do that.
So one of the ways that I think anxiety does affect my life is there are times when I step away from certain aspects of my life because I'm so caught up in trying to ensure that I've taken care of sort of the adulting things that I need to do. And so I step away from like friends and family or my puppy or like other aspects or like enjoying, a wine class or something like that.
So something really funny is I'll start to wring my hands. Like it's a weird tendency where I need to fidget. And my siblings would always notice and they'd like grab my hand and be like, what are you anxious about? Like, stop it, stop wringing your hands. Because it's just like, it's something to distract you and get your body moving, which is why I took up knitting, coincidentally, because I can move my hands while I'm doing something else.
I think always wanting to be in control makes me want to be somewhat of a perfectionist. So I feel like I'm always on the go. So even when at work, I'm always trying to make sure that everything is taken care of, because if everything is taken care of, that means that it's in control and that brings peace to me. And so it makes it difficult for me to step away from work when I know I need a break, or it makes it difficult for me to not burn myself out.
Anxiety has many symptoms and can look very different from child to child. It can impact a child's thinking, their feelings, and their behavior. So with thinking, you may see reduced attention and concentration, memory problems, a lot of worries, difficulty solving problems, and negative thoughts and fears. Physically, a child might experience rapid heart rate, sweating, headaches or stomach aches, vomiting, sleeping problems, and even muscle tension. Behaviorally, anxiety can look like restlessness or a lot of fidgeting and rapid speech. Anxiety can also look like giving up, avoidance or procrastination on tasks, perfectionism, so doing something over and over until they feel they have it right, failing to complete tasks, or choosing easier tasks. And anxiety can also look like angry reactions, so things like crying, irritability, and temper tantrums.
When I feel really anxious, my parents know, because my face gets, not red, but like it's not like how I usually look. And I get like all like emotional, and I get like really fidgety, and I just like look like really scared.
When someone is experiencing significant anxiety, it can be really difficult for them to think clearly or logically. Some families may have heard of fight, flight, or freeze, and that's the biological alarm system that automatically responds when an individual feels anxious. And it's actually designed to protect us from threat or danger. So when a child feels anxious, changes occur in their mind and body that get them ready to fight, flee, or freeze. And then we see certain behaviors. But with support, children can learn coping strategies, such as deep breathing, that can help them to slow down both their thoughts and their physical reactions in a situation, and help them feel less anxious in that moment.
It's always, oh God, how am I gonna get through this? How am I gonna do this? Like, what are the consequences of not doing that? How am I going to basically survive this situation? It's like a fight or flight response kind of thing a lot of times, but I've been able to train myself to think differently.
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, is also a common behavioral health disorder in childhood, and it occurs with anxiety about 25% of the time. There's a lot of overlap in symptoms between anxiety and ADHD. Behaviors such as excessive worrying, or being highly distracted, or difficulty sleeping are common of both anxiety and ADHD. So it can be really hard for families to know why they're seeing their child display certain behaviors.
With anxiety also comes ADD. They're comorbid, and Gabby was diagnosed with both. And as she gets older and the anxiety is more controlled with her medication and her ability to work through it on her own, her ADD is starting to kick in more. So that was another reason for seeking out the 504, is she's still missing out on so many things. And I remember one day she was so anxious at school, and she said, "Mommy, I was having such a hard time, and I did my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but by the time I was done, everybody was finished, and I hadn't even written my name." So, I mean, that was hard. And it's hard to see her miss out on those things.
At school, what's been helpful for Braden to manage anxiety has been his guidance counselor. He has a phenomenal relationship with his guidance counselor, open door policy. Whenever he's struggling or just needs to talk, he will go seek out that counsel. He's also on a 504 plan. So he has a standing desk. He has the ability to go take tests in remote areas out of the classroom. He has the ability to grab fidgets throughout the day. He has the ability to get up and take little walking breaks if he has a little anxiety or feels like he just needs to get out of a situation. So that's been really helpful to allow him to kind of manage it on his own when he feels like he needs a break or needs a quick timeout. He has that ability to go do that.
Kelly has an individualized educational plan, so an IEP. She has had it, for several years. And we have, in this community, we have a very good school system that supports Kelly.
If your child is struggling, even after small adjustments in the classroom have been made, it may be helpful to talk with your child's teacher about an evaluation for an individualized education plan, or an IEP. So a child is eligible to receive an IEP under federal and state laws if they meet certain conditions. So with a parent or guardian's consent, a series of evaluations are administered to a child. And if the results of the evaluation meet specific criteria, then an IEP will be developed for your child. And it lays out all the supports and services that will be provided at the school for the child to meet their needs. Some students who have a behavioral health or physical impairment may not meet the criteria for an IEP. but could still be eligible for a 504 plan. And a 504 will still allow them to receive accommodations in the classroom. So some examples are additional testing time, a standing desk, or sensory breaks. If a parent or caregiver would like to explore the process further of looking into an IEP or 504, they can definitely speak with a school administrator at their child's school, and they should be able to provide some guidance on next steps.
Gabby and I talk about anxiety always. I don't think it's never not been discussed. Anxiety is handled within our family by being open. It's never been a secret. No. It's not something that I ever wanted her to feel ashamed about. Nothing that I wanted anybody to ever feel ashamed about. I'll admit sometimes it's frustrating. It's frustrating when you really just want to get up and go and we're running late and say, Gabby, we're leaving in 10 minutes. Do you have your water? Have you put on your shoes? Did you brush your teeth? All of these steps that need to be done, but she's either distracted or she's anxious. So those steps don't get done, 10 minutes go by and we're still not out the door. But we've never been anybody who has said, oh no, this is a secret. You know, nobody can know about this. We can't talk about this.
Can't get better unless you talk about it and work to make it better.
Anxiety is talked about in my family. Probably like maybe once or twice a week. But whenever I feel the need to talk about it, my parents are always open. They're not like, no, you can't talk about this now. It's like, when I need to, they'll be like fine with it.
So I think it enters the home based on, how that day went, because he is doing everything he can to hold it together at school in those social situations. And then when he finally gets home, he gets a kind of a safe place to let it all out and to vent and to kind of let his emotions be true and be real.
My parents help me with anxiety because they help calm me down and they help me like realize that it's like not a one-way street and there's like different ways to approach it.
So when Braden feels anxiety, some of the techniques and strategies are to get a fidget. He practices his breathing. He gets his weighted blanket. He talks through it with us. He seeks out help and support. He's not one to go run off and try to deal with it on his own. He's very open. When he's in one of his anxious moments, Mare is very good about talking him through it, telling him that anxiety might come in waves, and just kind of really getting down to the specifics, saying this might just be a bad wave, and just know that it's going to come and then it's going to leave. Working on his breathing to kind of just center himself and focus on something other than the thoughts going on in his mind. Just in general, we are very open about it. We want him to know that he can talk to us about anything. We are here to help him. We are here to support him. So as long as he is open and honest with us when he is going through a moment or just has any questions or thoughts, we certainly will be there to support him.
Like my mom, when I would talk to her about what was making me feel anxious, she would be the person who would make me, think rationally about it, to kind of ground me, bring me back to earth, say, okay, you're feeling this way and it's totally valid that you're feeling this way, which is a big thing. Like, oh, someone else would be fine with presenting in front of the class. Someone else is totally fine doing their homework later than me. But they're not struggling as you are, and that's okay. It's okay to understand that you have different setbacks.
Kelly has her own therapist. We do, role play. What is it like when she's home, and what is it like when she's under the anxiety?
Yeah, so in the Latino culture, we don't really talk about mental health. We don't, again, like anxiety, any of the mental health topics aren't really necessarily spoken about. And it has such a negative stigma, I'm very grateful that when I told my mom that I've been going to therapy, she was very glad that I had been doing that. And so I didn't tell her until way later because I also didn't want her to worry. And so I've been grateful that she has my support and is like, everybody, we all need to go to therapy now. And she's, saying that to the family. I've had more conversations about anxiety with friends and like my professional relationships and with my therapist, or even doing my own reading. And so I think I wish it had been talked about more at home, because I would have been able to identify it sooner and sort of potentially stop myself from creating certain habits that I think, that I think make me step away from like friends and home and family.
It's important to keep in mind that in some cultures and families, anxiety and other behavioral health issues may not be talked about. And I think many families and cultures are hesitant to talk about behavioral health issues because of all the stigma that is around them. I think understandably, families worry about how others may perceive their child or perceive the family if they share that a family member is struggling or experiencing a behavioral health issue. You know, we always want families to get support in a way that feels comfortable to them. So for some families, it may feel more comfortable to seek support from elders, spiritual leaders, cultural brokers, or traditional and non-traditional healers. And these are all individuals who can provide social and cultural context and offer support and services that families can use.
We have not just looked at it from one lens of therapy. He doesn't take medication, not that we're anti-medication, we just have used other techniques. We also look at it holistically. So we're pretty adamant about his sleep. We really protect it. We don't allow sleepovers before sports things because we've noticed that doesn't work. We also have changed what he eats. So we've kind of tackled it from all avenues, not just from the traditional ones.
Some cultures might have different ways of approaching and treating anxiety as well. So for example, in India, an intervention that might be used for anxiety might involve more Ayurveda or yoga compared to some of the traditional treatments that we might think about here in the States.
When I feel anxiety in the moment, I think the biggest thing that helps me is either I breathe or I put my hand over my chest, and that kind of is pretty calming. I really love also, there's like aromatherapy lotion that's very helpful. Even in like those split 5 seconds that I use it, it's really helpful. I recently started meditating. So before I go to bed, I've been meditating for like 10 to 15 minutes, which is really nice. I'm glad that's, I think, is becoming a habit now. And so that's been helpful. I think I'm able to just clear my mind, and I'm not entirely sure the effect that it's having, but I think in the moment it's a good one, and I just want to continue doing that. And the gym is also very helpful. I like going to the gym. I think it helps me sort of decompress from work. My puppy also is very helpful with my anxiety. He's the best. Can be a lot of work, but he has definitely pushed me to work less, and I think made me recognize that there are other priorities like him. And the fact that he's just so great all the time and looking forward to seeing me all the time.
Taking things in stride is really great, like especially congratulating yourselves for doing something small. Like, okay, I talked to someone new today. Good job for me. Not focusing on, oh no, I didn't make 10 friends today. It's switching that around so it's a positive thought and a positive feedback for yourself.
What I do in the moment to help myself feel better, I usually just take deep breaths or like fidget with my, just say like my sleeve or something that will help me calm down. At home, if my brother's around, I'll usually play with him because he helps calm me down, and we have we usually go in the basement and play like soccer or football or foosball or something down there. When I'm at school, I just try and breathe deeply and not try and freak out.
It's like when she's anxious, she has this energy and you can feel it. When it's really, really bad, it's like almost electric. it just comes out of her, and she starts the meditation and her whole little body just comes into a place of peace, and then she's okay.
When I'm anxious, what I do to help myself is I do this thing called box breathing, where you breathe in, you make one line of the box, you breathe out, you make another, you breathe in, and then you breathe out until you make a box, and you can keep doing that. Or I do this thing called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you say 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. 5 things you can see.
The TV, the clock, the lights, the table, and the couch.
Yes. 4 things that you can hear.
The water, Nathan, you, and me.
Okay. 3 things you can touch.
You, my pets, and your sweater.
2 things you can smell.
Can't really smell anything right now. Like I can smell like the natural scent in our house, and the air fresheners.
Okay, and 1 thing you can taste.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I can't taste anything.
Taste. How about your taste your tongue?
Yeah.
With Kelly, who's 10, in the moment she loves doing slime. I think that having something in her hands is something that helps Kelly. Kelly likes to also play that she's a teacher. So downstairs we have a basement where she, pretends that she teaches others. And if you hear her, she actually sounds like a teacher.
My parents helped me with anxiety by kind of guiding me through stuff and telling me it's gonna be okay, and they kind of force me to go places to even if I'm nervous to go there, to kind of get over my fear, not fear, but to not be anxious whenever I go there.
We've never been of the school of thought of, oh, well, you're too anxious, we won't go. We have to conquer our fears, and part of it was getting her to prove to herself that she could do it. And now that she has that, even when she gets really anxious, now that she's older, she's able to sometimes have self-reflection and
Self-cope.
yeah,
Right.
and she'll say, at school, I'll do my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or I'll do my box breathing, or I'll go to the guidance office and I'll do a meditation real quick, and then I'll try to get back to class.
When I was really young, my dad took me to this basketball gym for little kids. And at first I didn't want to do it. I started running away. But every week or every day it happened, I would get first we would sit there, then I would move up and just keep going. And then by the time I was actually doing it, I was really liking it. So even if you're taking little steps at a time, eventually it will matter. You'll see that you like it.
So the more we let anxiety call the shots, the stronger it gets, the more we feed it. So while it might feel like the compassionate thing to do to let a child avoid something that's anxiety-provoking in that moment, it can really be harmful in the long run. It can really perpetuate or feed or strengthen that anxiety in the long run. So the more we can help a child approach rather than avoid, the more powerful we're making that child.
At least for me, my dad didn't understand what anxiety was. He never experienced it, but he would just say, oh, just go do it. It's fine. You're fine. Go back out there. And a lot of times it's hard for parents to understand, and I'm not blaming him in any way, but to see your child struggling with something that you think, you can cure a scraped knee. you can do that. But when it's internal, when it's your child shutting down and not wanting to talk to you about that stuff, you can't help. You don't know how to help because every person with anxiety is different. But in order to talk about it, they're letting you in and you need to listen.
Because I've experienced it, we're very open about it. It's not something that we don't share with our friends, for example. We're very transparent about it. We explain it as everybody has different challenges, and this just happens to be a part of who he is. And that there are going to be some situations that, you know, are going to be harder than others. And we also try to look at the successes and the things that he's, like, give him examples of progress in certain areas. So that seems to help when he has concrete things that he can see, yes, I did better with that.
So we didn't know anything about anxiety, you know, years ago. And I think that what has helped is, you know, really educating, doing a lot of reading. I wish that I had known what anxiety really was. I wish that I had, you know, learned more about it, reach out for help more. Because I think that at the very beginning, you almost go through like denial, almost like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And you almost kind of freeze, you know, and you get embarrassed and you don't want to. So I wish that, you know, right off the bat, I wasn't feeling so ashamed of it.
I can agree to that one on itself, because as humans, we don't want to see nothing wrong with us. And we kind of get stubborn to the fact that, oh, we gotta reach out for help. That's not something I would want to do, you know, until you really want a change. It's been tough, but we're in it to win it. I always, it's my theory to keep on going.
The advice that I would give other parents that are struggling with, that has a child that's struggling with anxiety, would be just be there for each other. You are not the only ones going through this. There's lots of us out there, but leaning on your spouse or your family or your friends is what it takes, because like it does take an army to battle this. You do need the support of everybody around you, and be as transparent as possible. Let people know what you're dealing with and how they can help you get through it, whether it's supporting your child or supporting you.
We have interventions that work, especially when we get it early. So I would urge caregivers to not wait until their child is paralyzed by it or where things are just too overwhelming, but instead reach out early, ask for help. Little interventions can make a lot of difference.
I would advise other people that have kids with anxiety to not be embarrassed to ask for help. You know, whether you know, find what works for you, you know, whether it's telling a relative, whether it's telling a friend at work. I know that for me, that has worked tremendously. I work with great coworkers who have said, you know, you should try this. But I think it's because I've been very honest, not ashamed and not embarrassed anymore to talk about it.
I have this thing where I'll freeze moments. So like if we're playing a board game or like our date last night or whatever it is, I literally like close my eyes for a second and I make a mental note to remember this in the times that are harder. Because I think you can use those times to sort of get you through the harder ones.
The advice that I would give other parents that have a child struggling with anxiety is to be patient, to be honest with yourself and with your child, and to not keep it a secret. Don't let your child hold shame, and don't ever let anybody let your child hold shame. They're trying. They are warriors. She's the bravest kid I know, Gabby. She does things every day that people take for granted that she has to work for. People take for granted getting up and going to the grocery store. Well, when you're having a really hard day, going to the grocery store is a really big deal. And you can't minimize that, I think. Advice that I would share with other adolescents struggling with anxiety is to be honest, to talk to your parents, and to really understand how brave you are, how amazing it is that you can do what you do every day with how hard it can be to do it. and still make it through. And if you don't make it through, it's okay. Tomorrow's a new day. But keep trying and keep talking. Don't ever stop talking.
The advice that I would give someone else with anxiety would be to find someone you trust and to just talk about it. Because when you're trapped inside your own mind, it's a perpetual cycle of stress. You don't understand that something may not be as big a deal as your brain is making it out to be. And a lot of times you need someone to just remind you, okay, we can do this. It's going to be okay. We'll break it down.
Really, that just because I'm having anxiety doesn't mean it's gonna affect me every day. Like, it's maybe one day I have really bad anxiety, but the next 5 days I don't have it at all. Like, it's not gonna like be there every single time. Like, I'm gonna have good days and I'm gonna have bad days.
I wish grown-ups or other people or like kids understood about anxiety is that there's not always a reason you're nervous or like anxious, and sometimes I'll just be really anxious and people are like, why are you anxious? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, you have to have a reason. I'm like, no, I don't. And like, you're stronger than anxiety because like you're a whole person. It's just in your brain. So you can take it down.
Just because you have anxiety, it doesn't mean you can't like do what you love. Like, don't let anxiety stop you from doing what you love.
I would tell other kids that had people in their family with anxiety that it's not always a bad thing. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world that's gonna happen. There is a way to deal with it if you deal with it properly and not just like say, you're fine, and just help them, and the person in your family who has anxiety, like help them through what they're anxious about, and then they'll eventually like feel better about it. My favorite thing about my sister is that she's funny. Sometimes she could be annoying, but most of the time she's not.
That's not a favorite thing.